everybody, it's Angelo with Angelo's Workbench, back with video number 2 in the Revell Chevy Beretta Pro Street video series. We're going to get started with the building. I'm going to start with the body. Cleaning up the mold lines on this kit was very simple. There was not much in the way of mold lines on the body. In fact, I didn't even color them with a Sharpie as I ordinarily do. I just sanded them down. At this point, I also cleaned the panel lines out and deepened them a little bit. And then we're going to go right for the primer. Upon reviewing the instructions, I discovered I could glue the front and rear bumpers now and then paint the car as one solid unit and it wouldn't affect final assembly later. I do this with every kit I build. I try to assemble as much as I can now so that I can paint it as one solid unit, especially if using a metal flake color. I also go over the entire body with a 600 grit to rough it up so that the primer has something to stick to. And that's it. The body is fully prepped and ready for primer and paint. Let's go to the paint booth. I am using the same primer I always use, Plasticoat Sandable Primer out of a rattle can. This can be acquired on Amazon, and I do a first coat that is a fairly light coat, and then my second coat is usually heavier, and then if I need to, I can wet sand the primer before I spray the color coat. The color I am using on this car is a nail polish. I have covered the nail polish mixture process that I do in a previous video. I use lacquer thinner, mix it with the nail polish, and shoot it through the airbrush. My airbrush is an Iwata HPCS. I am using a 0.5 millimeter tip, and I am shooting at 30 psi. I follow the same process with the color coat that I did with the primer. My first coat is a fairly light coat, usually a little transparent. You can still see primer through it when I am done. My second and third coats are slightly heavier, and my finish coat is almost to the point of running, but not quite. And that gives a nice, smooth, rock-hard finish when it cures. And that completes the color coat. After I have completed the color coat, I like to, especially with nail polishes and metal flakes, I like to compare the body panels next to each other to make sure that I have the same level of coverage, the same thickness of paint. The metal flake looks comparable to the other panels. There's no striping or anything like that. While the body is curing and waiting for its clear coat, we're going to move ahead with some part despruing. I'm not going to show you all of the part despruing. The pieces and parts of the kit were fairly easy to desprue and clean. Revell did a very nice job in doing this reissue, so they were very easy to work with. And now it's time for clear coat. I use Duplicolor Clear that I buy in a quart at Advanced Auto Parts here in the United States. It's readily available. It costs about $20, and you get enough clear coat to do probably 50 model cars. I like to put 3 to 4 good coats of clear on so that I know I have a sufficient amount of clear to wet sand the body without worrying too much about wet sanding through. The lacquer clear does shrink very nicely. You don't have to worry about putting it on too thick. You won't be too worried about covering body details, emblems, scripts, and making them blur into nothing with this clear coat because it does shrink down very nicely. I wanted to mention that I also do thin this clear coat, the Duplicolor quart. I thin it 2/3 clear to 1/3 thinner. This way I find I don't get as much spider webbing, dust, debris from the clear coat flying around the paint booth. The extra little bit of lacquer thinner helps to eliminate all of those issues, and I get a little more longevity out of the clear coat quart as well. Once the body parts have had the final coats of clear sprayed onto them, they will be set aside to gas out and cure for several days before I begin my wet sanding and polishing processes. While they're gassing out, I will begin working on the remaining parts of the kit, getting them painted and ready for assembly. I'm having a lot of fun working on this kit so far. It's a great kit. I hope you'll come back and join me in video number 3 where we start painting the parts and going to assembly.